And now it's my pleasure to introduce Duey Evans, the tennis pro, who is going to tell us what we can expect.
Welcome to the facility, everyone. When I saw this podium coming in, I got nervous. I actually thought about having the staff hand out rackets to everyone to have me feel a little bit more comfortable, because that's generally where I am, is out there talking and talk a lot. But thank you. I'm a firm believer there are rarely any accidents in this world. And it's definitely no accident that the history and the future of this facility is so intertwined with my own. Samuell Grand was built in 1963, less than a year after I was born. Within 2 years, this facility became the stage for one of the most venerable men's tennis events in the world. It hosted a Davis Cup tie with Mexico because when it was found out that Arthur Ashe was going to make his debut representing the United States, the facility that was going to host it said, "You can hold the tie here, but a black man cannot use our facilities." And so the citizens of Dallas came together and made it happen here. And it was the very first time that Davis Cup tie had been hosted in a public facility. Indulge me for just a minute, because I'm going to talk about a couple things that seem like they're not at all related to Samuell Grand, but I promise that I'm going to bring it all back together for you. I come from a family which prides itself in doing things which haven't been done before. My paternal grandfather, my dad's dad, graduated from Harvard College in 1925 and could only get a job as a chauffeur, because that's all you could get as a black man in America, even with a Harvard degree at that point in time. But he used the opportunity to learn all about the lumber business from the man that he was ferrying around, and eventually opened his own successful lumber company. He also became the first black homeowner in a town of Lexington, Massachusetts, which a lot of us know as the home of the American Revolution, or where the first shot was fired. But he couldn't buy the land outright. He had to buy it through a shill, because that's all that could happen in that time. My mother received her undergrad degree in English from Pembroke, Brown University, and her master's in education from Radcliffe, Harvard. She became the first professional employee for the town of Concord. She was head of a program that bused children from inner city Boston out to the wealthy suburbs in the 1970s, at a time when a lot of the country was at odds over integration and busing. She also became the longest serving chair of the guidance department for the Concord Public Schools. In my family, we coined a term for things like this, and we call it plowing on furrowed ground. My dad took up tennis when I was 6 or 7 years old, and he played in a public park. He'd go out on weekends and on Saturdays and play with his friends, and every once in a while I get a chance to tag along. Those outings would be fairly short, as they lasted as long as it took me to hit all the balls over the fence, and he'd say, "Go get the balls out of the bushes and go play in the park until I'm done." Well, I guess at some point in time he decided I liked the game enough that he put me into public park lessons within the recreation department at that very facility. And so Ride Out Playground in Concord, Massachusetts was the place that I first got introduced to tennis. My parents divorced when I was 11. At 13, I decided I wanted to live with my dad. But he was a single parent who loved tennis and didn't know what to do with a kid until he got home from work. So he arranged for me to spend my time in the afternoons at the tennis club that he had joined. And so Middlesex Tennis and Swim Club was essentially my home during my teenage years. I'd grown to love the game, And it was in its heyday. And if we remember the 1970s, and I believe Paul said that you played tennis here in the 1970s, and this was a happening place. It was where anyone and everyone came to play tennis, that this was the facility as it is again. Tennis was on television every week. You could find it. It was on PBS. Bud Collins would broadcast the finals on Monday nights. But I couldn't find anybody other than Arthur Ashe who looked like me. So I started following other people of color, specifically Raul Ramirez of Mexico and Vijay Amritaj of India. Let's skip ahead. February 6, 1993. I'd been attending the Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association Super Show in Atlanta, Georgia. I'd been invited to the home of Ernie Peterson for dinner and to watch a Buster Douglas fight. It should be noted that Coach Peterson ran a public parks tennis program in College Park, Georgia. He'd become a surrogate dad to me, and in 2003, he was acknowledged by the United States Olympic Committee as the Developmental Coach of the Year for tennis. As the fight was about to start, the announcer came on the TV and in a very solemn voice began to tell the world Arthur Ashe had succumbed from complications from the AIDS virus. February 6th is my dad's birthday, and Arthur Ashe is the only autograph I ever had. At that moment, Coach Peterson, I, and the other gentlemen in the room vowed to do our parts to continue the legacy of this great statesman. Now let's jump ahead again. Date, time, April 10th, 2010. I get a call from a gentleman by the name of Brian Witt, who was the contractor who ran Samuell Grand Tennis Center at that time. Kim, who any of you that have had any interactions with us know as the brains and the beauty behind what goes on here, tells Brian, I've just been informed of Coach Peterson's death within the past couple of hours. She tells him, I'll call him back as soon as I'm able, which turns out to be the next day. When I do talk to Brian, he tells me he's ready to turn the keys back into the city. Brian was unfortunate that his contract began winter. We had lots of snow and inclement weather, and he couldn't make a go of the place. But there was a chance that I could run it. The catch was, I'd have to start tomorrow. I let him know I'm on my way to Atlanta to Coach Peterson's funeral, and that's not going to happen, but I thanked him for at least taking the time to let me know that there might be a chance. But obviously the story didn't end there, because here I stand today. It's been an amazing 26 months, filled with milestones, triumphs, and countless setbacks. Each of those things has been worth this journey that all of us are on here at Samuell Grand. We're on our way to seeing the center experience yet another heyday. My own children and countless others have a chance to grow up in an environment where they'll develop lifelong friendships and learn a lot of lifetime lessons and things about themselves they didn't already know. Our school year programs for kids and juniors had more than 100 players participate each and every week last year. Right now we're experiencing our largest pre-enrollment for the upcoming year, and we'll start the year well above last year's numbers. Through our own Unfurrowed Ground Foundation, a 501c3 public charity, we provided free instruction to more than 300 kids on Saturday evenings in our Achieve, Compete, and Excel, or ACE, program. But it's not just the kids that we hope to impact, it's also the grown-ups. Our adult beginner programs, using our Advantage system of modified courts and lower compression balls, we'll be doing right out there, are usually fully subscribed month in and month out. That means we're introducing new adults to the game and helping many find their way back. Both scenarios mean healthier lifestyles. which will decrease many of the health hazards prevalent in today's society. Our internal leagues, along with walk-up play and our instructional programs, have this capacity full on more and more weeknights. Let's just say we've come a long way, baby, from the early days here when we regularly had days when the only people that stepped through the doors were those looking for a public restroom. We see the growth as just the beginning of what's to come. There's a broad dichotomy of communities which lie on the borders of Samuell Grand. If you go out in a different direction, you'll find a very different looking community. We're striving to become the nexus that ties those communities together. We envision through our unfurrowed ground foundation that 30 to 40% of all of our instructional programming will be attended by children eligible for free or reduced lunch. Over the next 18 months, our goal is to increase our instructional programming by a minimum of 200%, bring in national, junior, and professional events that will also help the economy, and develop our junior program into the best public parks tennis program in the country. After all, Samuell Grand was the first park to ever host the Davis Cup. And speaking of that, we're already talking to the city and to the USTA and some others about celebration we'll be holding at Samuell Grand in 2015 as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of that Davis Cup tie. Yes, we dream big here at Samuell Grand Tennis Center, because we believe that if you shoot for the moon, at least you'll end up amongst the stars. Even though they didn't know it at the time, I need to thank the citizens of Dallas, the park board, and city council for having the foresight in 1963 to know that a young man was born 1,760 miles away, that one day would view this as the perfect place to plow unfurrowed ground and create an uncommon opportunity in a very common place. Thank you. And I would be remiss, and I thank Kim, I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank Michael Canavan, who's back there, who you saw on the court with the young kids, and Scott Brown, the two staff people that make things work around here. They work tirelessly. And Josh Millett, who was part of our team for a year and decided that he was going to actually use his degree at some point in time, so left us at the end of the spring, but still a big part of what we do. And thank you.
Thank you, Dewey, so much. That was really brought it full circle for all of us here. Well, and now the moment where we get to have an official ribbon cutting for here. If Councilmember and Gabe and Dewey and Charles and Paul.
Andrea, I got the toddler stopped so they can hold the back for me. You put them where you want.
Really?
Over here.
Paul?
Over here. Closer to the ribbon. Take 2 or 3 steps. There you go. Oh, okay.